at Golden Gate University's webinar for the psychology department, psychology programs. So I am Tom Wooldridge. I am a clinical psychologist. I'm the department chair and an associate professor here at Golden Gate University. And I'll be the person doing the webinar today. We also have a number of other people online from enrollment, financial aid. We'll be able to answer any questions you have about that at the end of today's presentation. So this is what we're going to do today. This is our agenda. We'll talk about Golden Gate, broad overview. We'll talk about the different degrees we offer, their requirements. We'll talk about certificates, and then we'll talk about application, financing, and have plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. Okay, so Golden Gate University has been around for almost 120 years as a nonprofit in the Bay Area. We're an accredited university with almost 70,000 alumni, which, you know, is quite a lot. We're on a trimester system, so what that means is we have 3 15-week academic terms, fall, spring, and summer. Both of our degrees that we'll talk about today are available fully online. They're also available, as soon as the COVID situation attenuates, fully in person. And they're available in a blended format where you take some courses online, some courses in person. So, you know, what that means is you could live in the Bay Area and attend every class in the downtown San Francisco campus location. You could live in, you know, Utah and take every class online, or you could live, you know, in Sacramento and take some classes online and some classes in person. And we have students that do all 3 of those things. For 4 consecutive years, we've been ranked #1 by Washington Monthly, which is a magazine that ranks adult learning higher educational institutions. And, you know, we think they look at so many different criteria for every university that they evaluate. And we think this says a lot about the programs we're offering here, about how we, you know, stack up against other programs, our competitors. Student resources, we have many of them: academic advising, tutoring, tech support, counseling, mentorship. We have a library, really everything you'd expect to see at a major university and more. We also have a fantastic number of resources for students and alumni, particularly our career counseling, larger career center, which provides workshops, webinars, resume critiques, mock interviews. There's an internal listing of job openings. And if you're a student here at Golden Gate, you have access to that for life. So that's something that many of our alumni continue to make use of and are involved with. These are some pictures of our campus in downtown San Francisco. We're just a couple of blocks from the BART station. Everything is, you know, up to date in terms of tech. As you can see, our classes tend to be smaller. So, you know, anywhere from 10 to 25 in a class. Classes are very oriented towards discussion, practice, you know, exercises. There are very few classes here that are a sort of pure lecture format, because we really do in our pedagogy really emphasize learning by doing. So the 2 different master's degrees that we have a master's degree in counseling psychology, which is the degree that it meets the educational requirements in the state of California and many other states for the MFT, marriage and family therapy, and the PCC, professional clinical counselor licenses. And we have a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology. These are just some demographics of our programs. So, you know, we are an adult learning university. We have students who come here right after college and complete their graduate degree. And we have people, you know, in their 60s or 70s completing their graduate degree. And then we have everybody in between. Many people come here who are working and going to school at the same time. Many people come here because they're retiring or switching careers. Our programs are available in both a full-time and a part-time format, and you can switch back and forth. So what that means is that you can take a full-time load, which is 3 or more courses a term, or you could take 1 course a term, or you could take 1 course in the fall and 4 in the spring. we really do emphasize, maximal flexibility for the sake of our students. These are some faculty in the psychology department here, just to give you some examples of the kind of people that teach for us. Kathy Langsam is a senior adjunct professor here. She was recently given the Distinguished Clinical Member Award by the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapy. Another professor, John Ford, teaches some of our conflict resolution courses, and he recently published a book called Peace at Work: The HR Manager's Guide to Workplace Mediation. So just to talk a minute about each degree, we have a master's in counseling psychology, like I said. This degree meets the licensure, the educational licensure requirements for the MFT and the LPCC licenses in the state of California. It's a degree that you can complete at your own pace. It's available both in person and online. So you can take the program fully online, you can take the program fully in person, you can do both. As part of this degree, you do an internship, which is what's required in the state of California. And, a lot of people have questions about this. Our requirement is that the internship, that you complete 300 face-to-face hours over the course of 3 trimesters. In doing that, you get many more hours towards your MFT license. So the MFT license, which is the license that most of our graduates get, you're required to complete 3,000 hours. And in our degree, you get about 1,000 of those 3,000. And then you get the remaining 2,000 in what's called a post-MFT internship or an associateship after you graduate. So that 1,000 is more than most programs, more than you graduate from most programs with, because our face-to-face clinical hours requirement is slightly higher than other programs. We want people to have a leg up in getting their hours when they graduate. Before I turn to the IO psychology program, let me also say a couple more things about the counseling degree. If you go to the website for the psychology department at Golden Gate University, if you just Google GGU psychology, you can see all the courses that are in the curriculum, and you can look at syllabi for any of those courses. So it's really a great way to get a better sense of what our courses are like. The Board of Behavioral Sciences in the state of California highly regulates the curriculum that has to be covered in graduate programs that are meeting the requirements for that licensure. So our curriculum is a broad-based curriculum. It's intended to cover, all the major psychological, psychotherapeutic theories to give you a background in psychopathology, community mental health, diversity issues, group processes, family therapy, psychodynamic therapy, on and on. Our program is also a strategic partner of the Psychotherapy Action Network. So if you want to check out their webpage, I'd recommend it. I just typed the address into the chat box. The Psychotherapy Action Network advocates for relationship-based, depth-based, patient-based, client-focused psychotherapy as opposed to brief symptom-focused treatment. And so what that means is that, we really do want to train people to do psychotherapy that puts the interests of the client first, not the interest of insurance companies, managed care, or government. So we're kind of pushing back here against a larger pressure that the field is facing to make psychotherapy less than it could be. Maybe that's a way to say it. If you'd like to talk with me, more about that, I'm happy to have a conversation about it. Okay, so our degree in IO psychology, these are the learning outcomes. If you're interested in IO psychology, I'd really recommend checking out the Society for Industrial Organizational Psychology. It's called PSYOP. I just typed that into the chat box. They are the professional organization for IO psychologists, and they make recommendations about what graduate programs should cover. Our graduate program is very much designed around their recommendations. one of the really cool things about the IO psychology graduate degree is that because it's within the Agino School of Business, you're able to take advantage of all of the different offerings within the Agino School. So, that means that for your electives, you could take classes in the Human Resources Master's degree, the MBA, the Data Analytics degree, the Master's of Science in Leadership. You can draw together a set of electives that really emphasize your particular interests, which I think is something that's really unique and really valuable about our program. Many people come to our program because they're wanting to get a leg up before they enter the workforce, but I'd say an equal number come because they're already in the workforce and they'd like to make a move up in some way, or a move out, out into consulting, executive coaching, change management, into a private practice kind of situation. So, we really do try to meet the needs of both groups of students. We have an optional internship, which allows people that don't have a lot of experience in the field to get some experience. For both the counseling and the IO Psych degree, we have an internship coordinator who works with you one-on-one to find an internship, who has connections with internships around the Bay Area and beyond. So we really do facilitate that whole, often kind of anxiety-provoking process of finding an internship as best we can. The other thing I wanted to say about the degree is that in the curriculum, we have courses in executive coaching, consulting skills, organizational change, all of the things that people who are wanting to make a move up or into a private practice would want to know about. We also have 3 certificates, which can be taken independently or can be combined with the master's degrees. I'd say the most popular one is the certificate in conflict resolution. So if you take the IO psychology degree, you automatically get the certificate in conflict resolution because we've built in 2 courses specifically on conflict resolution into the degree. Because we found that it's a skill set that's in such high demand. You could also take the conflict resolution certificate without getting involved in the master's degree. The counseling skills degree is a certificate for people that want to take a few courses in counseling psychology but not do the whole degree. And the IO psychology certificate is the same thing, people who want to take a few courses in IO psychology. And don't want to get involved with the whole degree. So people always ask about employment. Our graduates are doing incredibly well. Both IO psychology and MFT LPCC counseling psychology jobs are predicted to really continue strong growth. IO psychology has been one of the actually quickest growing sectors in the United States for the past few years, and that's especially true in California. I think with the whole COVID situation, MFTs were already in incredibly high demand, and that's, I think, really about to explode. Kaiser just announced a program where they will pay for their employees to go back to school to get MFT degrees. So, I think employment looks very, very good right now. And these are some of the companies that our graduates have gone to. Obviously these are logos that are well known to all of you. People often ask where our IO students do internships, and these are some of the places that people have gone over the past 3 or 4 years. I was actually looking at some data last night of where our graduates in IO psychology have ended up working, and I was really impressed. If you're interested, you can reach out to me by email, and I can share some of that data with you. I was really impressed with the things that our graduates have done, many of whom are, high up in major organizations now. So that was certainly really encouraging. So how do you enroll at GGU? It's $32.70 per 3-unit course. You can submit an application online. We do not require a resume or statement of purpose unless your undergraduate GPA was below 2.5. after today's webinar, you'll get an email with an application fee waiver. So you won't have to pay an application fee. Just type that code into the application online, and that whole process will be free. There also are a number of financial aid, financing, scholarship options, federal, state, scholarships, loans, employer reimbursement. This is just an overview. Of course, we have people here who are happy to talk with you more about what we offer there. We're also a yellow ribbon university. So if you're a veteran, you know, you've really got a leg up in terms of cost. So make sure to be aware of that. So we have plenty of time for question and answer. I also just want to put my contact information into the chat box. You know, we can certainly talk today, but I'm just aware that, you know, after these kinds of webinars, other questions may spring to mind, and absolutely feel free to reach out to me by email. I'm happy to talk to you on the phone or over Zoom or by email about any questions that you have. Email is always the quickest way to get a hold of me. And if you let me know your number, I can call you back within a day or two. The other thing is, you know, if you'd like to sit in on a class and you feel like that would be helpful, everything is online right now because of COVID. So it's not, if you're planning on attending in person, you wouldn't necessarily get a full sense of what it would be like to be there in person, but I think it's pretty close. And I'd be happy to help you arrange to sit in on a class. It's really a great way to get the vibe of a university. And I think can be really helpful in making this decision, because it is a big decision. So, you know, probably the best way to do this, so we're not talking over each other, is if you could type your questions into the chat box. I'll do my best, or one of my colleagues here will do our best to answer them. You know, any questions you have, any ways we can be helpful, please let us know. So, what questions do you have? Yolanda, that is a great question. So the first thing I'd want to ask you there is, do you plan to get licensed in the state of California or somewhere else? Okay, so, you know, I think what you and I should do probably is have a conversation, you know, a longer conversation offline. I think the best thing to do would be to get the hours in the state that you plan to get licensed in. If that's not possible, then you want to think about where you do want to get licensed and explore what would be required to transfer in hours, because all the licenses occur at the state level. So I can't make any generalized statement about what does and doesn't transfer. But we certainly have people who take our degree who are in, you know, some other state, say Tennessee, and they get their hours in Tennessee and they get licensed in Tennessee. That's a really common scenario for us. So it's certainly possible. We just want to look at the details of your specific situation to make sure you won't have any problems. Okay, so the 300-hour face-to-face clinical hours, do they need to be done during the day? So that depends on the specific internship that you're placed with. There are internships that where the work happens at night or on the weekends. So what I'm getting at is that there are people that work most of the day and do their internship hours at night or on the weekend. That is definitely possible. Brian, certificates. Certificates are not 5 to 6 units. They're more like 5 to 6 courses. So a course is 3 units. So, you know, calculate from there. So if actually let me pull up the certificates quickly, and I can tell you how many each is. So for example, the certificate in conflict resolution is a total of 18 units. So that's 6 courses, and that's pretty typical for a certificate. Great question about the MFT and the LPCC. So our degree is designed to meet the requirements for both licenses. So you actually don't have to choose until it becomes time to take the license exam. So, we talk a lot with our students about the advantages and disadvantages of both license all the way through the degree. And then when you're getting ready to start thinking about taking the exam, that's when you'd make a decision. Some people do both. Some people get both licenses. I'd say the vast majority of people get the MFT in California. We set our degree up to meet the requirements for both licenses for two reasons. One is license portability. So although the MFT is much older and more well established in California, in other states, it's actually the LPCC that's more widely recognized. And since we want our students, our graduates, to be as mobile as possible, we thought it would be best for you to have the option of both licenses. The other thought there is that some people, resonate more with the LPCC than the MFT. In particular, people that want to do career counseling, because that's the main thing that's in the scope of the LPCC that's not in the scope of the MFT. So you really do have a choice. Michael, we don't require the GRE. We really do feel, that's not an accurate metric of success in graduate school. So that's not required. Where does this program rank in comparison to other schools? Well, that's a great question. The first thing I guess I'd say is we have to really think about, like, according to what metric, are we evaluating schools? I think this on the screen really speaks for itself, that, we've been ranked #1 for adult learners by Washington Monthly for 4 consecutive years, 2016, 17, 18, 19. We've been around for well over, 100 years. So, we've been around for 119 years with 68,000 alumni. So if you compare us to other professional schools, that really is a big difference, right? I mean, many professional schools are run for profit. They're businesses, that want to push through as many students as quickly as possible. They've been around for, 10, 15, 20 years. We're a nonprofit. We've been around for 120 years. We have nearly 70,000 alumni. We've been ranked, #1 by Washington Monthly for 4 years in a row. I don't mean to sort of toot our own horn here, because certainly, no school is perfect, and could be for a given person, another school is a better choice. But, when I think about something like ranking, these are the things I think about. I think we have a good reputation in the community. We have a quote unquote brand that people know. We have so many alumni out in the community. I think all of that speaks really highly for our program. So the application process, we don't require letters of recommendation. We do require your undergraduate transcripts. The specific things we need, depending on your situation, whether you're domestic or international, that is all online, and our enrollment advisors can give you a lot more detail about that. But we don't require letters of recommendation. Brian, an agreement with SFUSD regarding reimbursement of tuition costs. I'm not aware of such an agreement existing with any schools in MFT or IO psychology. It could be that there is an agreement that I don't know about. So if you're aware of that, please let me know, and I'll see what I can find out. It's a good question. Jimmy, I'm sure if you earned your undergrad at GGU, the enrollment advisor can just pull your transcript. As far as a success story, yeah, I mean, I can give you two. So thinking of one person, a young man who graduated from our MFT program, our counseling psychology program, about 7 or 8 years ago. You know, he was a really strong student, so smart guy, clearly very good at doing clinical work. I was one of his supervisors. He went out after graduation and got a job at a milieu clinic for severe mental illness. And within 2 years, he was making 100,000 plus at that job. He also opened a private practice, and within 6 months was able to fill it with 10 or 11 clients, which is what he could manage in addition to having this other job. He's now starting to make the move into full-time private practice, and also next year we'll come back and teach a course for us. So that's an example of somebody who really quite quickly was able to start making 6 digits, was able to do really well in private practice, and even has so much to offer at this point, I think, with his experience with severe mental illness as a clinician, that we invited him to come back and offer to the community of students here what he's learned. Okay, so other questions people have? Other questions I can answer? I do just want to say again, I'm absolutely available by email. So please, don't hesitate to reach out to me if I can help in any way. I'm here. I'm happy to, be of use if I can be. I'm happy to set it up for you to sit in on a class. I think, that is one of the most sort of valuable things people can do. Okay, so a couple more questions, great. So how soon after graduation do people typically get their MFT license? So the answer to that depends totally on how fast you get your remaining clinical hours, okay? So if you get a post-MFT internship or associateship and you go at it full-time, you can get those hours in a year. So in theory, you could be licensed in more or less a year, a little over a year and a month after you graduate. That would be if you're devoting yourself full-time to it. If you graduate and you're also working and getting your hours part-time, then it takes longer, and it really just depends on it depends on how fast you get your hours, and then take the 2 tests. So there's a law and ethics test, and then there's a full license exam, which you do need to study for. So to study for the test, people usually do a test prep program that reviews all the information for them. So I've given all the different scenarios. It's not uncommon for people to go at it, full time, and to complete the degree in a year. Okay. Is it possible for an international student to obtain a license in the United States upon completion of the clinical psychology degree? Yeah, so international students do that all the time here. They sometimes then go back to their home countries, and sometimes they try to get a visa and stay here to work. And we have had international students who have been able to get sponsorships from local community mental health organizations, especially if you speak a second language. That's been possible. It's not something we can ever guarantee, but it has been possible. Okay, so Yolanda, the program is offered online regardless of COVID. So even if the government opens it back up and the school opens back up and we're having in-person classes again, the degree will also be offered online. So both will always be available. how soon in the program can you start working towards clinical hours? So if you started in the fall, you could start working towards your clinical hours in the spring at the earliest. So you need to have been here for at least one term. Great question about students that pass, the percentage of students that pass the licensing exam. I don't have the most recent data in front of me, but if you email me, I can dig up the link. It's just a matter of finding the link on the BBS web page, which the link I usually use looks like is no longer working. So if you, let's see, I may be able to pull that up quickly. Let's see. So it looks like we had a, oh, actually, no, that's out of date. Email me and I will send you the link. I'm happy to get you that information. I do think that's an important question to be asking. Though that said, I also do want to say, you know, you really do need to do a test prep program to pass the exam. You know, what you learn in grad school, it's spread out over time. So, you know, 2, 3 years, however long it takes you. You know, to give yourself the best chance at passing the test prep program, it like compresses everything you've learned into a very short period of studying, which I think, you know, really helps. So, you know, questions about our program, how does it differ from other programs? Yeah, I think that's a great question. So one thing you want to think about is whether a program is a cohort program or not. So some programs, they're what's called a cohort program, which means that you go through every course with the same people in the same order with the same timing. So for example, you know, I start in fall, it's a 2-year program. I know which courses I'm going to take every term all the way through, and I'm going to be taking them with basically the same people. So our program is not like that. A cohort program does have certain advantages, right? So you get to know a group of people really, really well. You develop a sense of camaraderie. There's a group process that develops. That can be really valuable for people. The downside of that, right, is that there's virtually no flexibility in terms of when you take your classes, how many classes you take, how quickly you complete the degree. I guess there's a disadvantage in that, you know, the number of people you're exposed to is quite less as well. So our program is not a cohort program. You know, we're really designed around, you know, flexibility for adult learners. And so it just doesn't fit the interests of most of our students to be that structured in how the program is offered. You know, all MFT LPCC programs have to cover the same content areas according to the Board of Behavioral Sciences. There's just some differences in sort of overall program philosophy and slant. So, you know, like I said at the beginning, our program is a strategic partner of the Psychotherapy Action Network, and our sort of philosophy is to really value, you know, long-term, depth-based, relationship-based psychotherapy that's client-focused. So, you know, other programs might emphasize, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy, short-term evidence-based treatments. They might emphasize, you know, spirituality, you know, focused, you know, with that sort of philosophy infused into the program. We're really much more oriented towards depth-based psychotherapy. Those are the two main things. I mean, our program is a broad-based degree, you know, it's a generalist degree. We're not training people to be specialists in, say, you know, addiction studies or art therapy. It is meant to be a generalist, general psychotherapy, training. A lot of our graduates end up in private practice. Yvonne, the program is completely available online. Yes. Michelle, information about financial aspects of the degree. Sure. Could one of my colleagues step up there and answer questions about the financial aspects of the degree? Chu, are you online?
Yes, so there's different ways students can finance their degree. Students could, after they're registered for classes, pay in full, set up a monthly installment plan. Like Tom had covered in one of his slides, there's financial aid available based on need as well as merit, federal as well as state, as well as different scholarships, such as we have a international student scholarship up to $15,000 for qualified students. But if you want more information about the different financing option, I would recommend you contact Gigi's financial aid office, and I will put the email address for everyone in the chat box. It's going to be finaid@ggu.edu. And then you could always reach out to your enrollment counselor as well if you need further assistance also.
Okay, any other questions, any other thoughts people had, or any other ways I can be helpful today?
Hi, Tom. It looks like Yvonne had asked how much is the tuition to complete the degree. Did you want to answer that, or did you want me to answer that?
Yeah, jump in, go for it. I don't actually know off the top of my head.
Okay. It depends on which program you choose. Like Tom had mentioned previously, each 3-unit graduate course is $3,270 currently, and it may also depend on like things like transfer credit, like math requirement, math 40 statistics requirement, I believe. If you want a more specific number, you could again reach out to your enrollment counselor and they could guide you through that.
So deadline to submit applications for the fall. We have a rolling admission system, so there's not a hard deadline, but you do want to get things in, with plenty of time for us to process the papers before fall. So fall starts in, let's see, late August, I believe. Is that right, Chu? So, we need them. I think to be on the safe side, if you were to get them in, in July, that would probably be ideal.
So fall 2020, the term begins September 6th with the registration opening up July 13th. So there is a priority admission deadline for domestic student of at least, I would recommend 3 weeks before the term begins. But if you're like an international student, especially outside the US, I would recommend at least 2 months before the term begins to allow enough time for application review, visa processing, things like that.
Okay. Michelle, social distancing, intern hours. Yeah, it does. It does affect the internship process. So people are still getting internships. A lot of internships are now moving to telehealth. So people are doing their work online. So that's there. We have flexed the number of required hours down for some students if their internships have been affected. So instead of requiring, 300 hours, maybe we require 225. By and large, I would say most internships have moved to telehealth, and so most students have had no problem. I think that's going to become more and more the case because the internships that couldn't adapt quickly are still in the process of getting up and going on telehealth. So my expectation is that, it's going to be pretty seamless by the fall. Brian, you're asking about transfer credits, GGU course equivalent. Yeah, Kendra's asking the right question. Are you transferring from another program? And if so, if you could tell me which one, that would be helpful, because we have agreements with some of the local schools that have closed or are closing. University of San Francisco. So we don't have an agreement with the University of San Francisco, but what I'd recommend is that if you're in a graduate program at University of San Francisco and you're interested in transferring, email me, and I will do my best to make sure that you get credit for every course that counts towards the MFT that you've taken. So in other words, the hope would be that you could come here and sort of hit the ground running from where you left off. Send me an email and a copy of your transcript if you have it, and we can talk about your situation. I certainly wouldn't want you to lose credit for courses you've taken. Okay, I see. Okay, so yeah, we want to have a longer conversation about, the main thing we need to look at is not so much GGU's policy. We need to look at the Board of Behavioral Sciences requirements, because when you go and apply for a license, they're going to look at your courses, including the courses that are transferred in, and we want to make sure that all the educational bases are covered, basically. So regionally accredited means that we're accredited by WASC, the Western Association of, what does it mean? WASC accreditation, Western Association I'm going to get it wrong. Western Association of Schools and Colleges. And so, they're one of the premier, so basically pretty much every school is going to be accredited by WASC or some equivalent if they're offering, like a graduate degree. Yeah, so that's what that means.
So there's a student asking, as international applicants were supposed to provide bank statements with a fixed amount of money, does this factor affect admission decisions? So that isn't a part of the admission decision. The documents that Tom had listed previously with the application, the official academic documents, those documents will be used in making the admission decision. And if admitted, international students would need to submit additional documents for the I-20, such as a bank letter. But I'll go ahead and put my email address in the chat box for international students to reach out to me, and I could assist you if you have more specific questions.
So there's a great question about a department that helps the student get the clinical hours. So what we have is an internship coordinator. We have an internship coordinator who maintains relationships with probably 75 different agencies in the Bay Area that our students get placed at. She walks you through every step of the application process, including resume, interviews, all of that. Once you get an internship, we then have a case conference seminar that you're in throughout the whole experience of internship, and you have a direct faculty member who's like a mentor or a coach in the internship process for you. I'm also regularly in touch with people that are in internship. So there's a lot of things set up to facilitate the process. Usually internship is one of the big points of anxiety for people. We never have students who don't get internships. There's plenty of internships in the Bay Area in mental health. And we do a lot to sort of facilitate that process for you. So, let me say again, I'm totally available. What percentage of internships are paid? That's a good question. Relatively few. So relatively few, what's called a pre-MFT internship, or the internship that you do while you're in the graduate program. Relatively few of those are paid. A significantly higher percentage are paid after you graduate. So that post-MFT internship that you do for a year, associate internship, it is definitely possible to get paid for those. There are some internships that are paid. They're just relatively few. If you have a day job, how do you get your clinical experience? There are internships that operate at night or on the weekend, which is not to say, that it's not tough. I mean, that's, then like a full-time job plus the internship. The internship usually takes between 15 and 20 hours a week. So, maybe that would be a couple of nights and a Saturday. The clinical year after that, after you graduate, does not have to be full-time. So, there are definitely a lot of people that do that part-time. They do it, over 2 or 3 years. It just takes a little longer, but it's totally possible to do that and have another job. People do that regularly. Okay, so I will bring us to a close, but again, my email is in the chat box. Feel free to contact me. I'm happy to help in any way I can. Happy to help you sit in on a class, answer any questions you have. I also feel like I just want to say, given what's going on in the world right now, in multiple dimensions, it's a really hard time for people. I want to wish you all well, wish you all health, safety. I think the programs we offer here are really important, actually, and can really contribute to, shifting what's happening in the world in a positive or a more positive direction. I hear that regularly from students, that the careers they move into after Golden Gate give them a real sense of meaning and purpose. And that's certainly what I would hope for everyone. So I wish you all well, take care, and feel free to reach out to me at any point if I can help. Okay, bye.